Hi, everybody. All right, oh, guys, you are here on such a good night. Welcome to another edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live. I'm JG Pasterjack. I'm excited about tonight. We have officially, you can say it today, New York Times #1 best-selling author Garth Stein, author of Art of Racing in the Rain, now a major motion picture, coming on with us in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, before we get to that, I have my co-pilot with me tonight as well. You are not allowed to be in the show. We are celebrating our life with animals, and like the one that just jumped on me. We're celebrating this movie, this book preceding it, that did a fantastic job of sort of distilling our relationship with the creatures we share this earth with, and our relationship as motorsports enthusiasts with the hobbies that kind of drive our world. So really excited to talk to Garth in just a couple of minutes. Before we get going though, please do all of that usual social media stuff that we ask you to do. Hit the like button, hit the share button. If you're watching us over here on YouTube especially, can you do me a favor and subscribe to our channel? We would really appreciate that. See some of our regulars hanging out here. Walter, Mike from Hot Springs, Arkansas, Ted from New Mexico. We got a good crowd forming tonight, so let your friends know. And hopefully your dog is sitting next to you, your cat's sitting next to you, your bird's sitting next to you, like mine is, because he wanted to meet the man that made Daddy cry so much. And so we are going to hang out tonight and celebrate that with Garth Stein. So let us get to it here. Let me get Garth, my man, are you there?
I am here.
Look at that. Okay, we are in good shape. So we are. I'm just going to get kind of right into things a little bit. Actually, we've had two people now on the New York Times bestseller list on this show. The first one was Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, and he kind of described a process throughout his experience with going from somebody who enjoyed writing to somebody who realized that they were writing for an audience. That audience was responding to, would be willing to pay for it, to getting a call from Ridley Scott. And he said at each step along the way, he kind of had to reset his meter of what was the most absurd thing that had happened to him in his writing career. Does that kind of describe your journey through this? I mean, what you've got a little bit more of a literary background, so I think you were probably heading this direction. But walk us through the path of what it's like to realize that you are really touching something out there that's resonating with people.
Honestly, JG, the weirdest thing that's happened to me is being interviewed by someone who suddenly has a parrot jump on his shoulder. That was like really weird. I didn't know we were invited. There he is.
Yeah. So and he's actually the exact same color as the chroma key. So
Well, there you go. If I had known, I would have gotten Rocco, our bearded dragon, out of my son's room and brought him down. Um, yeah, I think that I had a little bit of a different trajectory than Weir did. I mean, I love that book. That was an amazing book, and he scienced the heck out of it, right? And they made a great movie adaptation. Matt Damon is one of my favorites, so that was really cool. I think that happened. That was a very compressed time for him, and I think that my sort of journey was expanded and took a lot longer, and so therefore I didn't ever get the bends, you know. The book came out in hardcover in 2008. Got a good response, especially in the automotive enthusiasts community. And then in paperback, it really took off. Patrick Dempsey jumped on it right away and snapped up the rights. But then it languished for 10 years in Hollywood, and I thought it was never going to happen. So when it did happen, I certainly was already I knew what it was all about, and I kind of even warned the filmmakers. I said, be careful. The fans of this book are legion, and they're enthusiastic, and if you screw up the movie, it's on you, not on me. So you guys better watch yourselves.
Well, and I think that's kind of the crossover between you've got a very passionate fan base with the racers, and of course, the animal people are exceedingly passionate as well. But I think one of the things, and to make actually another Martian comparison, is one of the things that you nailed in the book, and I think they did a fantastic job translating it to screen, is the this sort of unglamorous blue collar nature of motorsports for anybody that isn't
Yeah,
Jordan Taylor or Fernando Alonso, for the
yeah,
95% of people even that are professionals. They are, it's fighting for your next meal. It's an incredibly
yeah.
sort of vagabond lifestyle. Tell me a little bit about kind of your own background in motorsports, and obviously you've got some deep roots there because you know how that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very perceptive of you, JG. I mean, I think that that world is the same in the writing world as it is in the automotive world. It's like, the number is something like 3 or 4% of all writers actually make a living writing. Everybody else has day jobs, and they're doing it because they're passionate about it and because they have to do it, as opposed to they just get a big check from Gatorade or Powerade to do it.
Yeah.
So, I think we're all it's a very similar sort of plight that we creative people on the racetrack or in the writing world kind of suffer with. In terms of for myself, I was I always loved watching car races. I was a big fan as a young person, but I grew up in Seattle, and then which is not a big hotbed necessarily of motorsports. And then I went to New York and lived in New York for a long time and didn't own a car for a long time. So, I kind of have a weird background. In 2001, I moved back to Seattle with my family, and that's when my father, who was doing a lot of high performance driver education at Pacific Raceway, said, "Hey, you should come to the track." And I did, and I got bit by the bug, and within 6 months had gotten my racing license and bought a Miata. So I like, and then of course once you go racing, you don't go back. It's like
Yeah.
the adrenaline rush is so intense on a racetrack. Um, you just can't. I mean, lapping days are amusing, sort of. It's like it's not the same intensity. And so I really was into it. And so for a bunch of years, I raced with Spec Miata and had a great time doing it. Um, I didn't realize that I was going to write a book about it. I didn't plan to write a book about it. I had no idea. I was just doing it for fun because I loved it. And at some point, things came together for me creatively, and I thought, oh, what is a great place to set this except against the backdrop of automotive racing? And so that's why the racing came into it.
So, did you have sort of a narrative in mind, or I always get the impression that you had these sort of pieces of this life that you were living, and you had sort of things you wanted to communicate to people, and you kind of put them together into the structure of a narrative, but these desires to sort of communicate the bond with the track and the
Yeah.
desire to do something that is not as sexy as people think, and then the bond with an animal. I almost feel like those came first, and then the narrative sort of came after.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of levels on this. I'm actually taking notes because I want to make sure that we hit all these levels. I mean, regarding the story of the art of racing in the rain specifically, the kind of the order of dominoes was the idea of a dog being reincarnated as a person, number one, and then number two, the voice of the dog coming to me so strongly. And then number three, let's set this in a racing environment because who could better observe and communicate the principles of racing than a dog? And then I needed a plot, and so what I kind of did was I artistically borrowed bits and pieces of people's lives that I had come in contact with. And one of them specifically is a great friend of mine, Kevin York, who was my first driver's coach. And I just, his everything about him like was Denny in a sense. The ethic, the at all costs I need to get out of the track. I'm not I have a day job because that's how I can pay for my passion, not because it's necessarily where I think I'm going to end up for the rest of my life, and he had to balance everything, his family and his kids and his work life and his passion. And I really kind of respected the way he approached all of that. And I thought that's a great character to work with. And so Kevin sort of really brought in that element of the story. I do think it's important to bring out what you said earlier, and that's why I wrote a note about, what they did great in the film was the capturing the everyday nature of club racing. Now, I know they didn't really do club racing in the film. IMSA was behind it, and IMSA was a lot of stuff. But still, I think the feeling is there that we understand that it's all about pitching in, and it's all about having a good race, and it's all about integrity and yeah, okay, if people push the lines maybe of what they can do with engine modifications. We're not getting into that, but when I was racing with Spec Miata, there was a famous incident where I was down for a race, and one of the guys, his engine blew up on the Saturday during qualifying, or during practice even, not even qualifying. And his weekend was over. He didn't have a spare engine. No one has a spare engine in Spec Miata. But one of the local hot shoes, Ken Sutherland, who lived in Beaverton, Oregon, when we were in Portland, he's like, I have an extra engine in my garage. So everybody, got Jim's car on a trailer and took it over to Ken's house, and with some Coca-Colas and some beers, dropped the engine and put a new engine in and got him ready to go, and he raced the next day. And that's sort of the ethic that I loved about racing, and I wanted to capture in the book, which is, look, okay, so fine, your engine blows up, you DNS, great, I beat you because you DNS. No, that's not the way it's going to be. Ken was like, oh, no, take my best engine, put it in your car, and now let's see if you can beat me. I want to beat you straight up. I want to beat you for real. I'm not going to beat you because you're disqualified.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so that's interesting to go back to, I think, the second point you made, the having the story come from the point of view of the dog, which I think was interesting. So, we're all familiar with an unreliable narrator. And I think when you introduce that dog's voice into the book as your narrator, it's not necessarily an unreliable narrator. It's almost like an overly reliable narrator. It's
right.
Everything is
Absolutely.
Everything is just sort of incredibly unfiltered, and through this mask of loyalty and idealism, and accurate to a fault. And was that an appealing way to show this life that was not as sexy as people thought it was, to just sort of take all the filters off?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. That was really fun to play with that aspect of it, which is that we love Enzo so much, we'll kind of believe anything he says, even though we know it's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. He has a whole theory in the book. This didn't make the movie, but in the book, there's a whole theory that man is descended not from monkeys, like everyone says, but from dogs, clearly. And he has a whole thing, a logical thing that he works out. And like, you read the chapter, you think, well, that's just not right. But it could be, maybe it is right. Maybe it is true. And so when we want to give Enzo the benefit of every doubt because we like him so much. And so that becomes a very fun narrative.
So, I'll try and get into this delicately, but as a storyteller, introducing the element of a dog, like, if I'm watching a movie, if I'm reading a book, and there's a gorgeous golden retriever, that dog may as well be wearing a Red Star Fleet uniform, because you know as a consumer of media that dog is dead. I mean that dog is not going to make it through the book. But as a storyteller, it gives you this sort of great device that as soon as you introduce that dog, you kind of start start a clock. You start a bit of a countdown, and if you look at the life of a dog, it's I've been thinking. I lost an animal recently, and I was thinking a lot about how we really sort of divide our life into chapters based on the animals we share with. And the life of a dog, and if you think 12, 15, 16 years, that's the journey from childhood to adolescence, or adolescence to adulthood, or adulthood to empty nesting. It's this really fantastic narrative device, to be completely cynical about it, that gives you this great time structure. But you also know going in that, like, as an author, you're going to have to deal with the end of that.
That's all what it's all about. That's what life is. Life is about peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
If it was a flat Earth, it would be no fun at all. I mean, that's why we have 12 turns in a road course.
Yeah.
We need to have the highs and the lows and the excitement, and then the moments where we're just kind of cruising. I mean, I think that part of with our relationship with our animals is the fact that we do know there is an end to this journey that we're going to have with them, and yet we have so much joy and so much unconditional love in that 12 years or 13 years or 14 years or whatever it is. We know we're going to pay. There's no way out of it. There will be grief. There will be pain. There will be tears. There will be an emotional, reconciliation at the end. And yet, you're not going to give that up. You're not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to skip that because I don't want to have 12 years of joy," right? So I think that's part of our journey, though, is that we understand, we appreciate and respect so much more of those moments, or at least we should. We should strive for that. Those moments with our animals of joy. Because it's going to be, it's okay to feel it's grief. Grief is part of the human experience, and we should be okay with feeling it. Now, if it overcomes us and it makes us depressed and we do bad things, that's too much grief. That's why we need to sort of do grief in a healthy way. And I think that, honestly, our pets, and especially our dogs, because I'm a dog guy, that's part of what they're here to teach us, is how to deal with that, at the end of their lives. We all have to face it, and it's, in a way, it is exercise for our emotional psyche.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting to see a sport that I enjoy, a sport that really defines my professional life through that filter as well, through that incredible lack of filter. It was a cool perspective. A couple questions coming in that I want to get to quick. You talked a little bit about Kevin York, who was one of the inspirations for Denny in the book. Bob wants to know about his friend Bill Cooper. Might have been in there. Can you talk a little bit about some of the specific people that, maybe without giving too much away or freaking them out, that made it into the narrative and pieces of their life that you may have taken?
Well, I tried to drop in people as I could with whatever poetic license. You have to understand, I wrote 2 books before The Art of Racing in the Rain, right, and no one read them. So I really didn't think anyone was going to read The Art of Racing in the Rain, honestly. So I was doing all sorts of kind of goofy stuff in there. I have a quote from a famous race car driver early in the book, and I just kind of made up a quote that I thought I'll later on I'll go, this is a placeholder, and later on I'll come back and fix that. And it's when Enzo says, my mind, when I'm racing, my mind and my body are working so closely together, I must be sure not to think, or else I will make a mistake. And I thought, I need to find a quote that'll fit that. So I put it in there, and later on, when the copy editor was going through it, and she said, I don't find any evidence of this great race car driver, Julian Ceballosa, in having won any race ever in the world. Who is this person? And I was like, it's fiction. That's my 7-year-old nephew. He doesn't drive. So I was able to do that sort of stuff. You'll see Ross Bentley in the book. Don Kitch, of course, is the owner of Performance Race School, who taught me how to race at Pacific Raceways. Taught me how to handle a car in the rain. In fact, he gave me the title of the book, which was in a handout that he gave out when I took his 3-day racing program for SCCA licensing. And so a lot. I did try to bring in, some characters that would be fun, and some I just made up, and some are historical. Obviously, Ayrton Senna is Enzo's, sort of ultimate champion. I was lucky enough to be at the Detroit Grand Prix back when there was a Detroit Grand Prix on
Wow,
the
yeah.
streets of Detroit, downtown, not on the island, but downtown. So it was back in I think it might have been the late 80s, like 89, 88, something like that. And I was there, and when he won, and it was pretty spectacular to see a race that up close and personal, especially in the United States.
So our friend Dean Case wants us to ask you about the original name for Enzo the dog. But to expand on that even a little bit, was there anything that that didn't make it past your narrative editing as well? Any roads you started to go down that you didn't find anything there, or any place you wanted to go that you weren't really able to figure out a way to do it in a satisfying way?
I'm not sure about. I'm not sure that would take a lot of psychoanalysis, I think, for me to come up with that. I mean, the one thing that was a careful balance was, having enough racing in the book to kind of placate the racing people, and the fans of racing, but not having so much that those who were not who were not associated with the sport, would be turned off or bored by stuff. So there was a lot more kind of racing philosophies and theories and all that kind of stuff, before the editing process, when I'm working with my editor at the publishing house, and kind of really kind of honing the book down to the razor sharpness that hopefully it is. So there's always that balance. Dean here has asked about the original name of Enzo. Dean, by the way, Dean Case, is the guy who, I think he's the first. I mean, at the time he was working with Mazda, and when the book came out and he got a hold of me, he was the first one, in the pro sporting world, racing world, to contact me, and he said, "Hey, love your book. You must know how to rate. You must know how to drive, because you can't just like research that. You have stuff in there that clearly you have to have been on a course. What's the deal?" And I said, "Well, everything I learned about racing, I learned in a Miata." And he said, "Oh, can we use that in an ad campaign?" But he put me in a car. Old Dean did, an MX-5 Cup car, and he's like, "Yeah, we put celebrities in these." And then they showed me some videotapes of other celebrities who I will not name right now, doing their MX-5 Cup car, and it was pretty horrific. And I said, "Well, I can definitely keep the bumpers on the car, no problem."
Yeah.
But it was really a lot of fun, and I really appreciated, being embraced by the sporting world, by Mazda Speed and all that kind of stuff. And since I was racing spec, I thought it was really cool.
And of course, Dean's always been a huge advocate of yours, but what better audience you have there for somebody who embraces the motorsports community and is an absolute animal lover and involved in animal welfare. Like two things that anybody that's involved in one of those things is passionate about anyway. But you combine those two things and like this perfect storm of Dean Case right there.
Yeah, he really is a great guy. But to answer his question, when I first started writing the book, Enzo was not named Enzo. This is one of my famous stories. When I first started writing the book, Enzo was named Juan Pablo, for Juan Pablo Montoya, of course. And I thought that was a very clever name. I thought, I can do all sorts of fun, jokey stuff with this, and, bring in some topical racing stuff, that sort of thing. And I gave the first 40 pages to my wife, and she read them, and I said, "What'd you think?" And she said, "This dog's going to go around the world, but there's just one thing." She said, "You can't name the dog Juan Pablo." And so we went back and forth. I said, "What should I?" And so finally I said, "We're so fine. What should I name the dog?" And she said, "I think you need to name the dog Enzo." So my wife definitely, and she was correct. Obviously, she always is. And I'll say that for the record, honey, if you're watching, you're always right. And Enzo is the best name for the dog.
And Jim Jordan is taking credit for putting you in the MX-5 Cup car, by the way.
Oh, that was Jim's fault. All right. Well, Jim is also like Jim is like my guardian angel. You know, he also put the book into Patrick Dempsey's hand and said, "Here, read this book." And I think Dempsey said no. I think Patrick followed him around for a few months, saying, "No, read the book, read the book, read the book." And one of my highlights of my entire life was being at Daytona for the 24 Hours of Daytona, hanging out with Patrick Dempsey, and someone coming up with a book and a pen and asking me to sign it and not him.
Wow.
And Patrick Dempsey was actually offended, so it was cool.
So let's talk about that a little bit. As you made this transition from somebody who's excited about the book resonating with people to thinking, holy crap, this is going somewhere else. This is crossing over to different medias. What was that? How was that for you emotionally? Was there some conflict? You were excited that it was getting traction, but you were worried about losing something that you had created. Did everybody seem respectful of your creation as well?
There are so many ways to answer the question. I mean, there's the way that would be really polite and dignified and all that, but the bottom line is they have a number. They write it down on a piece of paper and they slide it across the table to you, and you look at it and just turn to your agent and say, "What does this number mean?" And he says, "How much is your integrity worth?" And you say, "More than that," and then they keep making the number bigger until it gets to a point where you've got to. You're like, all right, I got 3 kids going to college on that. So
my mortgage company does not accept integrity for payment. I've tried. I've tried a few times.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Look, I mean, the bottom line is they can't change the book is what the attitude that I had.
Yeah.
Which was I wrote the book and the book is it. And for me, I'm happy with this and people seem to resonate with it. They're going to make a movie out of it. It's their interpretation, it's their adaptation, and so good on them. If they want me to have some input, they'll ask, and if they don't, they won't. And sometimes they asked a couple of times, and then they didn't a couple of times, and ultimately, I think that I went down to screen the movie back in April when it was all done, and I said to myself, "Wow, they changed this and they changed that and they didn't put in this line they should have put in and they could have done it like this." And I had like little things in my little brain, but I said, you know what? They got the heart of it right. They got the spirit of it right. And that's, I don't think one can expect more than that, So I'm very pleased with it. And it was a thrill, in the past month to go through all this Hollywood stuff, but everything is turned back into pumpkins. So my glass slippers are gone. No one's emailing me like 30 times a day anymore. And it's just you and me, JG, hanging out on Facebook Live. So,
that's something I can still go 2 exits away and see the movie tonight. So that's the ability to cross over into different media forms, I think is impressive. So speaking of the movie, you say they got a lot of the heart right, and a lot of things right, and
yeah.
I think one of the or another one of the things that they did a fantastic job with is it was clear from the book that there were places that meant a lot to you. We actually got an email from the folks at Pacific Raceways earlier this week when they heard you were on the show, and it's clear from reading the book that was that was kind of where you got your start. It's a track that I've only been to once, but it had an effect on me too. I think it's unlike any other track I had ever been to.
Yeah,
and
it's a great track.
I was really, really impressed to see it not just in the movie, but well photographed in the movie. Talk a little bit about doing justice to places like that in the narrative, because it's obvious from reading it that place meant a lot to you. How tricky is it to get that across to somebody who might really not be a racing person?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure you can get it across to someone who's not a racing person, but it was interesting. We had a screening. I had a screening here in Seattle the first weekend just for the car clubs in the Northwest out of appreciation for all the community they've provided for me over the decades, right? And it's funny when there's this scene where at the end where they're driving at Pacific Raceways and they're going the wrong way on the track, and everyone is just mowing, and I'm like, come on, guys, look, everything has to change for art. It's art is what our ultimate goal is. What was great about the movie is that Simon Curtis, who's the director, is a fabulous director, and he was so good at working with the story and with the characters and the actors and making it come to life. And his sense of visuals and everything he's so talented. From what I understand, he basically said, I don't know how to shoot on a racetrack. I don't know how to shoot car. That's not my thing. So they brought in Jeff Zwart to do all the on-track footage, and he's brilliant. I mean, it was like a genius move. It's like, what do? You go get the best guy at photographing cars and bring him in and say, here, make this look hot, make this look sexy, make this look awesome. And the shots in there for car lovers, there's like the shot of the Ferrari going away and then coming back. I mean, there's like so many money shots of cars, of car candy, of car, porn, that I think car people will love the movie just based on those visuals. And they'll probably say, I wanted more. You got to have the story too, right? But it was so wonderful when they said they're going to come down and shoot for a few days at Pacific Raceways to get that track, because it is a beautiful track.
Yeah.
It's got great elevation changes. It's just this Mount Rainier's in the background. I mean, it's a great, it's a fun track to drive. It's challenging, and it's got all these elements to it, and they've made such huge improvements over the past 10 years with just for safety purposes with runoff and different things, that it really visually, I think, is a striking track. They did other tracks. They shot at Mission up in BC, and they shot at Motorsport, and there are other tracks in the film, but kind of the money track is that end sequence with Denny and Enzo in the Testarossa at Pacific Raceways. I think that, I don't know how many of your listeners, I mean, if you said, okay, end of your life sequence, you're really old, someone's going to take you out in a Testarossa for some hot laps around Pacific Raceways, they'd be like, yeah, I'll sign up for that. Okay.
Yeah. It's not going to be Sebring because you wouldn't survive the lap. So, but that we talk about tracks like that, and I think that was really something that I was glad that they brought a guy like Jeff Swart in, because for people, I'm sitting in a theater of people that maybe this is Daytona, so they're familiar that there's a 24-hour race, there's a 500-mile race, they're somewhat racing savvy consumers, but they don't know how special some of these locations are to us. And they're never going to build a track like Pacific Raceways again ever. They're never going to build Sebring again ever, or Mid Ohio, or some of these places that are very, very special to us, because they represent our history with the sport, and they're never going to exist again. So let's tell you what. Let's take. I want to switch gears to the animal part.
You're
of this.
saying so much. I mean, I could be talking forever, but I think we have to go to commercial.
Yeah, let me take a.
You got that look. I can see that look in your eye.
Quick break.
I'm
looking at the time, and I'm like, oh, geez, I gotta pay some bills. But I want to switch gears to the animal portion of this one when we come back, because it was as an animal person myself, it was interesting to see some of things that some constructs that I've created, parallels between these creatures that I share my life with and the things that I do with my life. We'll talk about that in just a second. First, guys, if you are enjoying the show, first off, thanks to here he is up here. Thanks to Garth Stein for hanging out with us tonight. We got folks that make this show possible. You can see them over there just past Garth, talking about our friends from CRC Industries. Of course, before the show, we hit my glasses, our screens, everything with the CRC display cleaner. How many people do you know with a can of brake clean on their desk? Probably more than a few, because that's that's the life we live in. Check them out, retailer near you, online at crcindustries.com. If you have a chance to hit their social media, tell them you appreciate all the stuff they do for the motorsports community. Shows like this and events like our $2,000 challenge. Also, check out our friends at Coney Shocks, coney-na.com. Whatever you're driving, however you're driving it, tow vehicle, track car, autocross car, competition vehicle, Coney has a shock for it. Check them out online, coney-na.com, or at a retailer like Tire Rack and SPC Industries, Specialty Products Corporation. If you're building a street touring autocross car, you're building a time trial car, they have the parts to line your suspension up the right way. Camber kits, caster kits, my cans are falling off here. Roll center correctors, camber arms for the rear of your Honda EG or EF. All kinds of great stuff. You're driving a Subaru BRZ, Toyota 86. Check them out online, spcalignment.com. We are fans. Okay, and our friend Bob bought some CRC anti-squeal today for his brakes. Thank you very much. And we got some links up there too. And also, if you guys want to know more about what we're doing online with the live broadcast, you can text GRM Live, GRMLIVE, to 31996. Get updates about live broadcast. No real show next week because we are traveling to the SCCA Solo Nationals. Week after that, though, when we're at Solo Nationals, we're going to have lots of live and pre-recorded content, and it's going to be fun, and hopefully it stays dry this year. All right, let's get back to Garth and make sure I have not missed anything. So let's talk about our life with animals, because this obviously the entire narrative you've created here is coming from the point of view of an animal, but it's created by somebody who clearly has a deep connection with the animals in his life. What was the original sort of spark that made you think it would be exciting to tell this from the perspective of a dog watching this? How did the idea for that take hold?
Well, I think that my brain doesn't work necessarily in a conventional way, and in the same way that I thought Juan Pablo would be a great name for a dog. I also, when I was writing the book, when I first started writing the book, I didn't think of Enzo as a dog. I'm going to put it to you that way. I thought of him as a nearly human soul trapped in a dog's body, and he was waiting for his next incarnation so that he could get his thumbs, he'd get a tongue that would make words. That's what, and so in that is a character that's conflicted and has got some, tension and is a fun character to write. Once I started to get into it, then I was like, okay, so, all right, I got my dog, and let me do some observing and stuff. But it wasn't like I studied the lives of dogs. I mean, I've always grown up with a dog. I've always had a dog. So it wasn't like it was unfamiliar to me. And I know, there are certain things that you have to put in there. He sees Denny. So what does he do? He wags his tail and he shoves his nose into his crotch, because that's what dogs do. So, kind of the dogness of it is not that, it's not that difficult in a sense. But what I was trying to do is capture the kind of a character that at once wants to embrace his dogness and indulge in all the fun, cool stuff that dogs get to do, like smell everything's like psychotically better than a person could, and run like crazy through wet grass and chase balls and that kind of stuff, and also has the desire to be like his hero, right? Because Denny is his hero. People are saying, why would Enzo want to be a race car driver? He wants to be his partner, his master, his guy. He loves Denny so much. Whatever Denny's doing, he wants to do. That's what I feel like when my dog Comet died last year. So otherwise I would introduce you to her. In the old days, a year ago, I would have said Comet, and she would come up and she would get up and say hello to you. But she's no longer with us. But when she was around, if I was doing something, even if it's a ridiculous, silly, stupid thing, she wanted to do it with me. I mean, my kids don't even want to do stuff with me. My dog wants to do stuff with me. So I think that's what I was trying to capture in the book.
So when you were working on this, were
Was
you?
that was that totally are you disillusioned by that? Did I
No,
let you
no, no, no.
down?
I'm re-illusioned by that. But I guess that leads to me wondering. So when you were working on the book, were you still racing at that point?
Uh, yes, yes, but I
Okay.
had sold my car, and I was doing arrive and drive.
Okay.
I, I don't wrench. The problem with racing for me is that I didn't grow up like I don't know how to work on a car. I don't know how to work on a car. I'm sorry. I apologize. I feel it is a great gaping hole in my entire existence, and I try to pay penance. I try to apologize for it at all times. I don't know. I don't have that basic knowledge, and so I love racing and I love cars and I love being out on the track, but it becomes hugely expensive if you're not wrenching on your own car. And so anyway, um, I forgot the question.
Oh, I was thinking about the timeline as you're how did it make you as you were working on the story? How is it making you
Oh yeah.
sort of reflect on your own on track? And it sounds like your own on track career was kind of winding down.
Yeah.
How is this making you reflect on your own time?
Yeah, no. So what happened was I was racing for a bunch. I was doing all the races in Oregon and in Seattle, and really enjoyed it. But I had two kids at the time. I have three now, and they wouldn't come to the track with me, and my wife wouldn't come to the track with me. So I was doing it all on my own, and it becomes challenging. And then, back in the old days when Spec Miata was just beginning, people would, you would trailer, you take a little two-wheeler to carry your stuff and drive your race car to the race, and then which becomes really a challenge if you break your car during the race on how to get home, right? So then you got to get the trailer and you got to get the van, and so the next thing you know, it's like it's a whole huge production. And so I kind of could see that it wasn't. My kids were getting older, and I wanted to spend weekends with them, and they wouldn't come with me. So I really was ambivalent about it, but I guess I thought maybe I'll step back from racing for a while and come back to it later in life, sort of thing. Um, that I had had that clarity of thought, at the time, and had sold my car intact where it would have been worth something and gotten out gracefully. Instead, my ambivalence was such that I went to Pacific Raceways on a rainy August weekend and went out on the track, and the zebra got in the car with me, and I put my car into the wall at about 100 miles an hour, which is just about as fast as a Spec Miata can go. And it totally just destroyed the car. But the cages are so good. The safety equipment is so good. I was fine. They came and they helped me get out of the car, and the wrecker came and took the car off the track, and I went to the infield and got checked out by medical, and then I called my wife from the infield on my cell phone, and I said, honey, the good news is I'm okay.
Oh.
The bad news is I've destroyed my car. And she said, and the good news is you're retired. So it was
and
sort of the
and
end of my racing career.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely. I think everybody that's been there, whether or not they have any intent to continue or not, or whether that changes, like that is, there's few more profound moments of reflection than when you are in along for the ride, completely out of control. Um,
There is nothing the seconds do not get longer.
yeah,
I mean, it really was. It was. I mean, and I've been in a couple of incidents, not major, but there stuff happens out on the track, and you lose it maybe, and you think, oh my God, something bad's going to happen, and nothing bad happens. And I just remember at Pacific Raceways, it was at the kink when they redid the straightaway. They took the road track straight off of what they used for the drag
the drag strip.
races.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then they had to blend it back in. And so it's known now as the kink, where you blend it back in. Well, when they first did it, it was not well done. or at least not done well enough, I should say. And it would accumulate some standing water on and it would move. The water would move, and you'd never know where it was going to be. And so it was just like it was like a grab bag of hell, like on the track. And so it was they fixed it now. It's all good, but that first couple of years was dicey, and I got caught up, and I remember like going kind of somewhat backwards down the straight. And I thought to myself, if I'm lined up perfectly, I'm going to make it all the way down to turn 2 and like into the infield where the flag station is, and I'll be fine. And then bam, it hits the Jersey barrier. And I'm like, but that time just stretches when you're in there and you know there will be an impact, and it's actually going to physically hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing getting hurt. It's another thing knowing you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
I think. So obviously huge open-ended question here, but if you never had that incident, how would you have finished the same way? Would we be having this conversation now? Was that a catalyst into your creative life at all?
Geez, I don't know. I don't think
certainly
so.
a hell of a way to do research, man.
This conversation.
Yeah.
I think we'd still have this conversation. I think that the world had already been built subconsciously.
Okay.
I didn't know it yet. Maybe it jarred it loose in a sense. I did race after that. I did do arrive and drive and stuff, and I just thought, let me just leave it up to the other people. And then, of course, Jim came along with this great idea to do MX5 Cup, which I love doing, which was hysterical, down in Portland doing the MX5 Cup. Oh my God, that was so funny, because it's SCCA Pro racing as opposed to SCCA Club racing. And I learned quickly that weekend that the difference between the club racers and the pro racers, nobody that I can beat is racing in the pro. See, so I was in a field of 24 race cars, and I finished 22nd that weekend. And I'd like to thank those 2 other drivers for crashing so that I could pass them. But it was just a whole different, league, and it was very enlightening. And it was, I think that I try to approach everything I do as what am I going to learn from this, and what can I take away from this? Not to exploit it, not to commoditize it, not to make it into a story. And yet, if at some point it works its way into a story, I'm not going to deny that thing. And so there were definitely moments in all of my racing experiences. The good, I got a checkered flag right there. The good, they hand that to you at the end of the race. When you get in first, they give you the checkered flag. You get to drive around waving it. That's like, what's more fun than that? And so the good things, I try to take that away, things away from that, and the bad things, take something away from that as well. And it all incorporates, it's all very holistic. I think everything that we do is all tied together. And, like the book popped back onto the New York Times bestseller list, and it hit number 1. It never hit number 1 when it was first out. Never. I think number 5 was as high as it got. Now suddenly I'm sitting at number 1, and I goofily go in, I say to my kids, by the way, from now on you're calling me Uno, because that's the respect you got to give me. And they're like, yeah, screw you, Dad. And I'm like, I know it's going to go. It's going to go with my next book. Will it come back? It's okay. The comings and goings, like having a pet, like having a dog, like having relationships, like the world, like having a race. The things come and the things go, and we should appreciate them for coming and going, and not for what they're going to give us by coming and what they're going to give us, what we're going to lose by it going. If we have that more sort of Zen feel, and I think that's something that I tried to put into the book, we have to be more thoughtful and deliberate about how we live our lives, and not worried about what we're going to get and what we're going to lose.
Yeah. At the same time, if you went to a Starbucks and got a coffee and they asked you your name to write on the cup, and you said New York Times #1 best-selling author Garth Stein, I would not think less of you at all. Ride that wave as long as you can, because that is not a wave you get to catch very often. So we gotta start wrapping it up soon. But you touched on an interesting thing. You sort of touched on this sort of holistic Zen experience that You know, we is I think something that people that do a lot of racing, that do a lot of track work, understand better than I think the general public gives them credit for, because there are few more sort of singular Zen experiences than, you know, having every fiber of your brain and every fiber of your body concentrating on the same thing at once. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, to contrast that with sort of our relationship with the animals that we spend time with, we talked about that sort of overly reliable narrator. I think the relationships that maybe some of it's us endowing the animals with this, or maybe it's real. Like there's also a purity, a sort of very simple but very powerful relationship we have with our animals. This long set up to a weird question. What do you think our animals think about the things that motivate us to do this stupid crap? I mean, I've got birds. They hang out in the shop with me while I'm working on these cars. I will wonder sometimes, like, do they think I'm just insane? But they continue to love me and engage with me. You know, what do you think our animals think about this stupid crap that we invent to amuse ourselves with?
Yeah, I'm not an animal behaviorist, but I will say that I think that the reason we bond with animals is for the very reason that we, you know, enjoy doing something like racing a car. What you were saying, it demands getting in a race car. You know what? You don't have time for all the other shit. You don't have time for it. You have to focus every fiber of your being on what you're doing, and you do that, and it provides you a moment in your life where you're not like obsessed with all the stuff, all the noise. And so if you can say that that form of extreme concentration, in which we get out of athletics a lot, and artists get out of doing their art, that level is of a great psychic relief, right? So I believe that we replicate that in our interactions with the animals that we share our time with, right? When I go with my dog, when Comet was around, she'll chase a tennis ball forever. She would chase a tennis ball until she actually passed out because she couldn't go anymore. And when I was throwing the tennis ball for her, I wasn't thinking about all the crap I had to do and all the stuff that wasn't done and all the stuff that needed to be done and all the stuff that I did poorly and all the stuff I needed to do better and all the phone calls and all the emails. Like, there's stuff that piles up. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about your dog. You're thinking about being in the moment. And I think that in a sense, that animals that's what they do. They're in the, what? We're now going to drain oil? That's so awesome. Right? And you're like, oh my God, I have to do this as a chore. But if you don't think of it as a chore, if you think of it as a process, look, for the book I wrote after The Art of Racing in the Rain, called A Sudden Light, it's all about trees and the Northwest timber industry and all that. And so I had to get into a tree. I had to climb a tree to see what it was like. And there's this tree climbing guru down in Portland, Tim Kovar, awesome dude. And he would take me up into trees and 250 feet into a redwood tree to like
that's
climb.
The most Portland thing I've ever heard in my life, by the way.
I know, right? It's like so Portland. But the thing is that you're in there, and he said he would like teach me. He would like be like the Zen dude in the tree. Can you imagine that? And he'd be like, climbing a tree isn't about getting someplace. It's about being someplace.
Wow.
And I think that animals give us that ability to just be someplace and not to try to get someplace. On some level, it's not a one-to-one, but you see what I'm saying? That like, yeah, that's why we like spending our time with our animals.
Yeah. They can filter out all of the sort of constructs that we invent to worry ourselves, and get us to a kind of a pure place relationship. Well, that's fantastic. So Last question. We'll leave it here. Um, I I I have this theory that after seeing the movie, especially, that the fact that Reese Bobby, Ricky Bobby's dad, was the driving instructor, Don Kitch, that we're on the verge of this creation of this entire shared cinematic universe between the auto racing in the rain and that. But to actually phrase a question here, as a creator,
Yeah.
did is are the lives of is this narrative, did it continue for you past the end and before the beginning? Is that kind of part of your process to design the entire narrative and then just show a piece of it?
No, 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 no. That's not. No, it's very immersive. It's you know, you got it all. I mean, when I write, it's a very intense experience for me personally. Writing stuff, I cry when I'm writing in the emotional scenes. I'm angry in the angry scenes, and um, it needs to be distilled to the finest point to be powerful. But anything that's on the cutting room floor belonged on the cutting room floor, and that's fine. It's just part of the process of doing it. I will say that one of the things I told them when they were listening to me about the movie was all the the character actors, that's what they call them, the not star actors
Yeah.
that populate the movie. I said they really all have to be um, actors who Enzo would have seen on television somewhere at some time, because it's all being told from Enzo's point of view. And damn well that he saw Talladega Nights, right? So therefore, when they said Gary Cole is going to be, Don Kitchen, I was like, yeah, you guys listen to me for once in your lives, thank you, because of course he has to be. Of course, Ricky Bobby's dad would be Don Kitch because Enzo is telling us the story, and so I loved it when at the end they go in the courtroom scene, they go into Law and Order, and suddenly the actors are in the. That's not a spoiler, anybody.
Yeah.
But it was like it's so much fun that they got that I said you need to understand this is not the story of a family and their dog. This is a story of a dog and his family, and you have to understand that. And if you get that, people are going to like it. And if you don't get it, then beware, the fans of The Art of Racing in the Rain will come after you. And I
That
think
is,
that
yeah.
the fans like it.
And honestly, that was something that I think I noticed without being able to put it into words, like
Yeah,
just um, the fact that those other characters are, they're strongly archetypal, and then even to get like Kathy Baker and Martin Donovan, the
yeah,
who are the prototypical uptight parents. Um,
right. No, it's
that's
perfect. They did a
yeah,
great job.
that's
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
really wonderful.
So, okay, tell us. Of course, New York Times #1 bestseller. It is out there. Where can we find out more about you? And what do you have coming up that you would like to let people know about?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff coming up this fall, just traveling on the road. You check out my website, garthstein.com, and find all that stuff. Goenzo.com goes to the same place, which is like my fun little thing. I've got a graphic novel coming out next summer in July called The Cloven,
Oh
about
wow.
mutant goat people living underneath the freeway in Seattle. It's so much fun to work on with my collaborator Matthew Southworth, and I just turned in my new novel to my agent, and he seems pretty pleased with it. So that'll be out probably in a year from now. A Couple of Old Birds, it's called, and it has nothing to do with birds, but two 80-something-year-old ladies who become new best friends very late in life. So it's a fun story as well. So I'm always working. I'm always trying to get out there and meet people. I will be doing a lot of touring this fall for The Art of Racing in the Rain, going to New Jersey and to Wakanda and in the Denver area, Greeley, Colorado. I'll be there in October. So if you check my website, you can see where I'll be, and hopefully I can see you.
Awesome. It's got to be exciting to work on a graphic novel too. I know a lot of your background is in visual storytelling. It's got to
Yeah,
be
it's awesome.
really cool to be able to. Anything that you're hoping this unlocks for you? Have you started to think about screenwriting at all? You started to think about uh, using some of that film background you
I don't
have?
know. I'm good. I mean, maybe we'll see. I mean, generally, I think, you know, I'm pretty comfortable, JG, and I'm kind of like happy. I'm like living my life. I'm kind of chill. I work out. I play tennis. I read tons. I get to work on my writing, and I get to hang with my kids, my wife. Uh, do I need to be busier? You know what? Look, if an opportunity happens, I'm not going to turn it down. But I think living in the moment is where I am right now, and I think I'm comfortable.
I cannot argue with that one
What
bit.
can I
Well,
say?
yeah, congratulations on New York Times #1 bestseller, and 165 weeks on the New York Times
Yeah,
bestseller list, and
I know, man. It's sick. I feel
yeah,
bad.
a
No,
major
I don't.
motion picture.
I don't feel bad
Yeah,
at all.
like do you
That's
do
like,
you get to
does Lewis Hamilton feel bad? I won another Formula One. Oh, I should let someone else win. I feel bad.
so
No, he's
so
like, I got
yeah.
another trophy.
Have you actually paid to see the movie yet?
No, I should though. That's actually the best question I've ever been asked. I'm going to go pay for it tomorrow. I'm
I would
going.
no, I would love to see a story in the Seattle Times that you got busted for trying to sneak into your own movie. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
yeah,
would
yeah.
be
No, no, no.
incredibly
I've only gone
fulfilling.
to screenings and screenings, and it's just like screenings, and I've gone to so many of them. I don't even watch the movie anymore. But I think it would be good before it leaves the theaters for me to go and buy a ticket, and that actually is something I should do. I didn't even. Now, you see, you're challenging me. It's good. I don't want to get complacent, man. I always have to look to better myself. So
And
good.
yeah,
Thank
just
you.
like sit uncomfortably close to somebody and just every few minutes just look over and go,
That's why I
so
don't go to the
what do
movies
you
then.
think?
I
Yeah.
don't like sitting close to people.
Cool.
Dude, I'm a
Well,
writer. I sit in my ridiculous office like all the time. Just no one cares. No one even comes in here. My wife says she stopped even coming in. She's like, I leave you alone. So
all right. Well, it was great talking to you. I love talking about the creative process with anybody. The book. I'm actually getting ready to do a 3,000-mile road trip to Nebraska and back. So I'm actually gonna listen to the audiobook again for the first
oh,
time
cool.
in a few years. So yeah, every time I have to pull over and and weep to myself at the side of the road, I'll think about you, my friend.
Think of
Um,
me. Think of
yeah.
me.
And yeah, just again, congratulations. It's very cool to see somebody that gets our world and can communicate it so eloquently. And it's neat to see, you know, representation is fantastic no matter what. If you can see a little bit of something you love on screen or on the page. Well done, my friend. So it's good talking to you.
It's a great community, and it's a really welcoming and lovely community. And I encourage everybody to try out Motorsports because that's where you'll find your second family. Everyone is really helpful and really wonderful, from corner workers to the people who run the tracks to the people who your competitors racing next to you.
Awesome. All right, Garth, thanks very much for coming on. We'll check you out, garthstein.com, and we will stay in touch, my friend. All right, let's wrap things up here. That was fun. I am a sucker for a good story. I will look. I'll be honest. It's been a while since I read the book. I didn't want to read the book right so close to seeing the movie again, so I'm gonna do it afterwards. But yeah, I was in the theater by myself, uh, like completely just snork crying. But I cry during Subaru commercials. So I got nothing to say. Guys, thanks for a great show tonight. I hope you enjoyed this show with an animal that you love close by. I did. I got my co-host with me over here. Actually, here let me introduce you to my co-host. Oddly enough, my co-host is the exact same color as the chroma key screen. So there's my buddy Gosha. If you've not seen the movie yet, if you've not read the book yet, if you've ever shared your life with an animal or spent some time on track in that sort of Zen location that Garth talked about so much, this book is one of the best sort of distillations of what we love about that part of our life, and it's very, very cool to see that part of your life, that way that you communicate with your own hobbies, so well represented on the page and on screen. So I highly recommend it to everybody. Thanks very much for hanging out over here on YouTube. Thanks very much to hanging out on Facebook. Thanks to my my co-host tonight. Here, you want? He loves the fact that he's the same color as the chroma key because it makes him feel like the Predator. Isn't that great? So yes, please go hug your dog, hug your cat, scratch your bird, pet your snake or your turtle or whatever, because those are the creatures that sort of keep us grounded in this. And we're very, very honored to have Garth Stein on tonight, talking to us about that a little bit. So next week, no official show next week. We might pop on to say hi, but next week we're going to be traveling to the SCCA Solo Nationals in Lincoln, Nebraska. Week after that, we are going to have hopefully live, definitely pre-recorded content from the SCCA Solo Nationals. If we've got signal, we will have live content. If not, it'll be pre-recorded every night. Week after that, September 11th, we got the guys from Race Voice here, and we're going to be producing content every week that'll be up on our YouTube page. If you do not subscribe to our YouTube page, check it out at youtube.com/grassroots motorsports. Please subscribe. You can. I don't care if you turn off all the notifications, but yeah, subscribe to that YouTube feed, because that is where we're going to be putting most of our video content. My co-host is getting antsy here. Once again, thanks very much to Garth Stein. Thanks to the folks that support this show, talking about our friends from CRC Industries, makers of great products like Brake Clean. If you need any sort of automotive chemicals, go to a major retailer, buy some of the CRC stuff, buy some Brake Clean, buy some Freeze Off. You're getting a great product. You're also giving a little bit back to the motorsports community, because they support great shows like this. They support events like our $2,000 challenge. They support racing at every single level. So check them out online, crcindustries.com. Even better, at a major retailer near you. Also, check out our friends from Coney Shocks. Where are they? Oh yeah, there they are right here. Coney-na.com. Shocks for whatever you are driving. Don't care if it's your tow vehicle, if it's your daily driver, your track car, your competition vehicle. Coney has a shock for it. Online, coney-na.com, or at a major retailer like Tire Rack. And SPC Industries, Specialty Products Corporation. If you need alignment, if you need control arms, if you need camber kits, caster kits, roll center correction, SPC has the parts. spcalignment.com on the web. We use some of their adjustable control arms on our 350Z project. I love them. Camber and caster adjustment without removing the arm from the car makes life very, very simple. If you've got a BRZ, an FRS, Toyota 86, they've got all the parts you need to convert it to an SCCA SSC car. So that is it. Check them out at spcalignment.com. We will see you again in the future. If you want updates on all of our live broadcasts, text GRM Live, GRM LIVE to 31996, and go hug your animals, everybody. Go hug your animals. Go pat your race car. Thanks very much to Garth Stein for hanging out with us. We'll see you again soon. Good night, everybody. Oop. Welcome to the awkward part of the show between when I hit the button and when we actually log off. Bye.